Did you know you can create instant applications using ChatGPT and ArcGIS Online? Let me show you how I can do that, and we'll create this application right here, which allows you to zoom in on individual lakes, as well as even click on the option down here, and it zooms the map as well. It has base map options within it, and all this was done with no code, low code. So let's take a look at the journey and how we got here and how I actually created this application. So first, as a background, this is the data set that I'm using. It's just a data set online of bathymetric data for the Great Lakes. You can see the item information right here. And this is just, again, it's just a free feature layer that's shared by Esri Canada Education. Now, what's important about creating applications in ArcGIS Online is realizing where the data are actually coming from. They're actually coming from a REST endpoint. And in this case, you can see this REST services directory right here. And you can know that it's actually coming from ArcGIS Online if you see this ArcGIS REST services. And what I'm going to do is provide this to ChatGPT to create my application. Now, I've already gone through the process and done this, so I'm just going to be giving you a guide right now of the steps and each individual item. And I do have the complete chat history as well as all of the individual steps put into my GitHub account. And that's available here, which the link will also be in the description of this video. So the final steps are here, map final and main final. And then each individual step is here. The map, first of all, gets incremented, and then a second document gets created called main, which has a few steps as well. So that aligns with what I'm going to go through inside of the actual dialogue that I used to get this code. Okay, so let's go through step by step. So the initial request is just supplying it the REST endpoint of that map service, and then asking it the question to generate an application using the JavaScript API v4 for ArcGIS. It responds with the full code here. And you can see it's just a few lines. And if we open up that code right here, we'll see step one. So step one, the application gets generated pretty easily. And it's not clickable or anything, but you can zoom around and take a look at the lakes. So most often, there's a couple of different things that people ask for in applications. So let's go through each one of those steps. So the next step, first of all, the ChatGPT does give you a full breakdown of how it works. So reading through that can actually help you learn how to do this yourself. And I've asked, add a base map selector to this. And it goes through and does that and regenerates the code to include the base map selector. And you can see that right here. So now we have this base map selector that's embedded inside of the code. Okay, so that's great. It does detail those changes that were embedded into that code. And you can see how I'm using ChatGPT as a conversation piece. I'm giving it prompts to how to improve this. And this iterative process is typically how you develop applications. So now, can you add a UI or user interface to zoom to each of the Great Lakes? And so it does that. And it goes through and creates, again, the full code and gives you an example, or gives you the enhancements to the original code. And we can see that right here. So now it has these links on the side, so I can zoom to each one of the Great Lakes to see them individually. Okay, so pretty cool, nice little step. Now what I'm going to do is create another web page that's going to refer to this. And you can think of this almost like a story map in the Esri world. The story map has a map that's contained within an overall story about the topic that you're looking at. And that's what I've asked it to do here. So I've asked it to create a map, create another web page to house this map and give information about the depths of the Great Lakes as a key element within it. And so now we're going to deal with two different pages inside of this. And so I'm going to switch to this. And so now you can see it's created this second page and embedded the map inside of this, but it has these little pieces of information here. And there's a couple of things that aren't really clean right now. For example, there's the scroll bars that are getting added. It would be nice to be able to click on these, to be able to jump to it, not having to, click on that as well. So that's where I'm going to start prompting next. So it creates that new web page. It creates it in its entirety. It gives you information on how it works and how it's using an iframe to embed the map that we previously created. Now I've asked it, can you make the lake info headings clickable to zoom to the lake on the map? And so then it says, yes, you can do that. It's a little more complicated of a step. It asks me to modify the script on the map page, which is adding a listener. And it does warn me that it has to change a couple of things. So for example, this local host needs to get changed. So you have to go through. So now we're starting to get into a little bit more coding, but it is prompting you. It's giving you a guide on how to be able to do those steps. And then it also asks you to make several changes to the main page. And this is the nice thing about ChatGPT. I wasn't really satisfied with it just giving me an example and saying, go and modify it. So I asked it, no, create me the page. So it actually went and created that page. And I took this and deployed that as a new page. And so now this one has these as clickable, but you'll notice it's not working. And this is where a little bit of application understanding how to develop something is important. So in this case, what I need to do is look at the errors and then give it back to ChatGPT to try to fix those errors. So the F12 tool on your browser has this console, which will show you messages that are erroring. And if you just refresh the page, you'll see there's no error, but every time I click on one of these, it generates an error. So if you simply copy this text out of the console and paste it into ChatGPT as the error, it asks you, or so you ask it basically, can you fix it? It says, yeah, the error you encountered has to do with this, and it has to do with localhost, and they've given me two different ways to fix it. One of them is hard coding localhost, because that's the way I was developing this. I was developing it on my own machine directly. I prefer to use a dynamic approach. So I've selected the second option here and changed the code according to this. So basically I replaced that one section to include that. So let's go take a look at this version of it. And so this version, now if you click on something, you can see it actually pans the map properly without an error. So those were the changes that needed to be made to be able to get that to function. So you just had to modify this one section in the code of that page. Now let's turn back. The iframe pages have these scroll bars in it. You can see them right here. They're not very usable. So again, ask ChatGPT to make that change. And you can see here, I've done that, and it created a new CSS entry, and it still wasn't removing it fully. So it said, okay, that's okay. Let's revisit this and change not only the main page that's showing the map as an iframe, but also change the page that has the map in it and remove those two items. And that's how we ended up with this final version, which, as you can see, has no scroll bars, the links work, and we have a fully functional mini application demoing this data. And you can just iteratively ask ChatGPT to try to help you. And sometimes it will abandon you like it did earlier on. It tried to get me to do the work in here, and I just said, where is it? So it did it here. It asked me, okay, make these changes throughout the page. And I wasn't satisfied with that. So I asked it to do more for me. I said, no, create me the full HTML page to do that. Now, of course, it has a memory of what's been going on, so it's able to actually go through, pull that, and create the full page. If you've made changes to that page on your own, though, recognize it won't know about those. So another way is to actually copy the HTML from your modified version into here and say, this is what I have right now. Can you fix this for me? And it will go through and do that. Same with errors. If you have web page errors, you can not only give it the error, but you can actually give it the full web page to try to help you fix what is happening. So it's really good at this code and fixing things. Now, the page itself got fixed. And what I did is envisioned this application to evolve even more. And I've asked it to make the map always appear at the top 60% of the page and the lower 40% scroll through the lake info heading. So instead of it being like this, where you have to go up and down, the map would be at the top and the rest would be at the bottom. But I didn't actually follow through on implementing these changes. It asked me to do it pretty well myself. It gave me the framework and it asked me to go do it. And that's a very common way for ChatGPT to work. It tries to help you with the simple stuff, but once it gets more complicated, it usually offloads some of the work to you. And that's okay. I did not implement this though, just as a discussion point, something you could potentially do. But recognize that iterative process is so important. Start simple, get it to do one thing at a time. Make sure that works, then move on to the next step. So in this, effectively, I created a no-code application that's all custom code using a generative AI, ChatGPT v4, and just focusing on a single map service. So if you'd like to visit and see more about this, I have, as I said, shared this inside of my GitHub account. And it has all of the individual steps, as well as the final steps, and the full ChatGPT conversation that was there, including in each individual prompt, as well as the response. So if you'd like to review that more, feel free. So I hope you find that insightful as a way to create no-code applications that are actually fully coded using generative AI. Thanks. Have a great day.